Hello everybody, EdwardFan223 here, and today I'm going to be making the video of the Thomas and Friends sub-eras video. Now, if you haven't watched the video where I talk about the Thomas eras, go do that first and then come back here. Welcome back, and let's discuss the Thomas and Friends sub-eras of the show. Now, our first era of the show, as we all know if you've watched this eras video, is the classic era or classic series. Now, my first sub-era is seasons 1 to 2, the Clearwater era. The Clearwater era is the era spanning from seasons 1 and 2. Well, as I said earlier, it's called the Clearwater era because the company Clearwater Studios, headed by David Mitton, were producing the first 2 seasons. However, before season 3, the company shut down and the Brittlcroft company took over the production team altogether. This meant that some people working on the show left and new people were brought in. This is why I consider this to be a sub-era, and the quality is kind of different from seasons 1, 2 and then the season 3, 4 and 5 afterwards. So this is the first sub-era. Now, seasons 3, 4 and kind of season 5. This is called the Brittlcroft era. Now, I know a lot of people say the Brittlcroft era is seasons 1 through 5 as a sub-era of the classic era, but that's just because I think season 6 and 7, in their opinion, is a part of the classic series. I have no problem with this, but that's just why people say it is. Anyway, the reason why the Brittlcroft era, well, they did own Thomas back in seasons 1 and 2, however, they weren't producing the show. In these seasons, they were. So this is why. And again, as I said earlier in the Clearwater bit, the quality definitely was improved. And a lot of people working on the show definitely, new ones were introduced. However, David Mitton stayed, so yeah. So that's really it for the Brittlcroft era. So let's move on to the kind of next sub-era. Season 5, well, this could not be considered a sub-era if you really want to. I personally wouldn't really consider it, but the reason why I have it on here to begin with is because they weren't using any Railway series stories anymore after this point. Sure, later in the CGI series, they did use tit for tat and other source material in other episodes. However, this era of the show is definitely a good one, even though they weren't using any more Railway series stories. So let's move on to the next sub or eras of the show. Now, season 6 and 7. Now, this is just an honorable mention for me. However, I put this here because some people may not like it as much as say they're totally classic seasons. However, they are here because some people might say they're a sub-era from the classic era, and that's also because the Brittlcroft company wasn't basically working on the show anymore. So that's really it. So let's move on to the sub-eras of the show coming up. Now, this next sub-era is season 8. I don't really know what to call this sub-era. However, the reason why it is a sub-era is because, Sharon Miller wasn't working on the show yet. That started in season 9, and she did have a big impact on the show. So, yeah. Season 8 was also a lot better than the future seasons in the hit era, so that's really it. Now, seasons 9 through 11. This is just called the hit era, or the new series, but yeah. Anyway, the reason why these seasons are separated is because of Sharon Miller. She joined the writing team this season and stayed on for a long time, and she definitely did a big impact on the show and wrote some of the worst episodes from these seasons. However, she has written some good things, so I don't, mean to call her one of the worst writers ever, but she is though. Anyway, some other additions, the episodes got worse, the Fruit Strikes formula was used much more, but that's just for the writing. Scar Lorry Railway engines kind of returned here, but that's really it. If you want to call season 11 a sub-era just because of the visuals, there's not really a point to that. I kind of thought that, but not really. Anyway, let's move on to the next sub-era, season 12. Now, I consider Season 12 a sub-era of the hit era. The reason being is because not only is there animation now, it's not fully animated, however, the models' faces most of the time and the human figures are also animated. So that's just another reason. Also, Sharon Miller became script editor / head writer in these seasons like she would in the next era of the show, the Sharon Miller era. Also, the three strikes formula was used in every episode, an aspect that was also used in the Sharon Miller era. For this, I call Season 12 the pre-CGI era, So let's move on to the next sub-era of the show. Now, Seasons 13 to 15. Well, you all know this is part of the Sharon Miller era, and like Seasons 9 through 11, I'm going to call it by its name, the Sharon Miller era. Now, the reason why this is separated from Season 16. Now, Sharon Miller was head writer in all of these seasons, hence the era's name. However, in Seasons 13 to 15, the writing was completely worse. Obviously, there is the unnecessary rhyming and the alliteration that has no bother being here. Season 16 could just be considered late Sharon Miller era because they removed the alliteration and the rhyming, basically all of it. Well, I think there was one case of it, but that's basically it. So let's move on to the next sub-era of the show. Next up, we have Seasons 17 and 18, the pre-Andrew Brenner era. Now, the reason why this is a separate era from the rest of the later seasons is because the quality isn't as good as in those seasons. While the quality and the visuals were much better than the ARC Productions era, especially with the writing, I don't think it is as good as the later seasons we'll see. Because the visuals aren't as great. However, as I said, they were a step up from Nitrogen Studios. And they weren't bad, of course, but they could be improved. And the later seasons definitely did that. I'm not going to talk about this things because there's no need. And that's it, really. So that's it for the sub-eras video. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Sorry this came out a little bit later than it should have. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time. See ya!